Hey all, we're at Pocono with the trucks. I'm pretty sure I caused this caution because I had an awful handling truck. I got the wrong right rear spring, and I'm just, it just won't drive. Very, very loose. I got 3 corners that are working, and the other one just wants to spin me out. So. It's not a super slow truck, but it's just after a few laps you just can't drive it, which, I'm not going to wreck the whole field if I can avoid it, and so I'm just trying to hang on. Here, the dumbest thing is, this is why I don't like that 30, 40 seconds to make your decisions, is it took like 2 seconds too long, and I didn't actually end up pitting. So here I am in a half-wrecked truck, 95 Aero at Pocono, way too loose, as you can see by the tire temperatures. The right rear is way too high, and I'm in lead, so it's like if I screw up, that's the whole field behind me on the restart.
Got one down low.
And there's part of my problem that you're seeing there. See, in Nascar 3, I had an awesome setup for Pocono. I did not struggle very much. I love Pocono. I love most of the tracks. And I tend to run well, or in general, people tend to run better at tracks they like. So I love Pocono, but I had a hard time figuring it out because, see, I'm good into one. I'm still good into one. I know it doesn't look like it because they all have fresh tires and I don't. I'm all half wrecked. But I'm good through one, and that stayed constant. Where I gained huge in 3 was through 2, which is where I usually do in all the other NASCAR sims. And here I'm literally 10 to 20 miles an hour slower. And that's, to me, just ridiculous. And it's in all the series. And turn 3, I'm 10 to 15 miles an hour on old tires, you can see here. And that's where I'm losing all my speed. So I'm not getting off the turn at 165, I'm getting off at 150. Therefore, I'm only going to be so fast down the front stretch and reach only a certain top speed, which is still good, but I'm losing time, in there. I'm amazed I'm holding on to it as well as I am in this old truck. But I'm going to have to pit 4 laps because I needed gas. When I run stages, I run just enough gas to get into stages when I have a fast vehicle. I might add a little bit extra gas, and see, it just took off on me. I couldn't exactly explain what happened there. But if you look by the tire wear, you can see that the thing wants more wedge. And I was adding wedge, but I never got to pit, so I had the same wedge I had in there before. Because more wedge will give you more weight on the left, I don't know. Anyway, it would make that look more even between the diagonal corners. Left rear, right front, and the right front to the right rear. Anyway, because you often look at chassis like that. It's front to back, side to side, and the diagonals. And during a race, diagonals, can be very telling. And it's kind of hurts my diagnostics when I have setups that the left rear always has less wear. So it's like I got to read 3 corners instead of 4, which makes it harder. Which I'm grateful for force feedback on my steering wheel because I can manage so much better figuring things out, like what it's doing, what it's not doing. Now here, one of the problems I have in 3 is I typically build offset, which works like caster, so I look at it as caster. I think engineers call it offset. And yeah, it could straighten you out down the straightaway, but that's not what it's for. Caster is toe in and toe out. Yeah, got a pit. But I'm hoping for a caution, so I think I stay out here. So typically, like a street car will have a little bit of toe in because it helps you turn, especially at the slower speeds and higher, tighter corners and such and whatnot. I don't know exactly how the setting works, but I will say this: when I add caster, it acts like when I add offset, it acts like I'm putting negative caster into the car, which means I'm towing the front wheels in towards each other. Like on a super speedway, you want very little. Like I put like 0.05 or something, whatever the second to zero last to zero setting is. But on a track that, like a flat track especially, or a track like Pocono here has a very high speed turn, and you're pushing, you tend to end up pushing off towards the wall anyway as the tires wear. You add a little you add a little caster. Now what the caster does is, as you turn your steering wheel, it amplifies and loosens the chassis. So you can put too much of that in and you can turn the wheel. Yeah, that's no brake smoothing and all me. Yep. As you can see, I was gonna be very, very ginger with it, but it wasn't ginger enough. See, now I have all my settings still there from the last pit stop that I didn't make. So it took me a minute to look them over and like, okay. But I still see how drastic a thing is, and I don't know if I change. Do I change it? No. I'd say, okay, let me go with the change I already thought about. Just add a little tape because we're getting down to the end of the race here. Or this is the third stage, I think. So, and whatnot. Anyway, so the more you turn, the more offset you have, the more you turn the wheel, the more it loosens the chassis. Now, the thing is, with these high-speed tracks and lower horsepower engines, you're kind of pushing your setup anyway, looser to get through the turns, to get off the turns, so on and so forth. So too much can make it just shoot left. That's one thing that can do that. I suffer from that at some other tracks and lighten up the offset, and it's something else. I'm thinking it's a track bar thing. But anyway, because I've been working on Chicagoland and I have that issue off of turn 2 mainly. And then I created it off of turn 2 and 4, so yeah, that change didn't work. But anyway, but offset can do that too. And I have experimented with it to understand that whatever they call it, this is how it acts. And how it acts is more important than whatever the hell you call it. So I think of it as caster. Now, I used to use caster stagger and camber stagger in Nascar 15 and got some nice speed and good long run setups on it with speed. But you can only do caster stagger here. Camber stagger here. The offset is uniform on both sides. But at least it's there. It's something. Like I said, high-speed tracks, you don't want more. I'm just, still struggling here. I'm looking for a top 10. Of course, if I have an opportunity to win the race, I will always go for it. But here, I'm just like, I'm not confident it's going to hold in 2. I'm not confident it's going to hold at the end of 3. The only place I am confident, or fairly confident, is here in 1. I get in better than them. But I'm losing something in the middle, but I'm not worried about this end because I'm still at 150 out. I'm faster than most of the field out here, and I gain a lot of time on the backstretch, so I don't really want to do anything that's going to mess that up, because it's like the one place I'm good. Here. Okay. Somehow, it just didn't register me shifting down. If you try to shift down, and your engine is at too high an RPM relative to whatever gear you're trying to shift into, it will just throw you into neutral. But then what I do is I just hit hit the clutch pedal because I'm on a manual shifter with pedals. I hit the clutch pedal and it's already in 3, so it engages, but it would not engage. I pulled it out, pulled it in, or whatever, and in the meantime, I'm holding it and trying not to go into the wall. And I don't want to hit the brake because I have the brake bias set for pits because I got no brake smoothing on, so it was just like slide into the wall. And that was horrible, but, you know. Now what I'm doing here is, if you noticed, I'm so loose, and I can't fix it in the race. I put all the other corners tire pressure up to compensate, because it's a fast track, it's the end of the race, bumping the tire pressures up won't hurt it. And I wanted to see if I can equalize that looseness out by, instead of changing the right rear and lowering it, which hasn't worked all race effectively, I now raised all the others so that the difference between the right rear and the others would be less, hopefully damping that too loose feeling. And I'm coming off here and I'm like, you know, this is about as best as it's felt all day. So I made a change that was very good, which just confirms that I need to lower that right rear spring, and maybe some other things too, but definitely. And I love AI because I know what they're going to do, I know where they are, and Greenfield got into me there. So you can slice and dice like this once you recognize how the AI is at each track. Like I knew I could go to the outside. Now the fast way around at all the tracks pretty much is still the inside line. If you can get a fast setup down there, here, I'm hitting the brakes, I'm like, if I hit the brakes any harder than that, and I'm pumping them, you heard the lockup, then I would just shoot to the right, and I didn't want to do that, so that I couldn't slow down enough to avoid Gen Joe there. See? Better than you've seen me. It did not slide up. It's not perfect in a different way, but it's perfect in a way I can it's better in a way I can manage. I can race a little bit more. And I'm like, okay, let's go. How many laps we got? I'm in 13th and 10 laps to go. Okay. Let's see what we can do here. If you notice, much smoother, which I had not experienced all day up until this time. I'm still too loose, but I'm nowhere near as loose as I was earlier. Yeah, this is something you couldn't do in 3. If you did that in 3, you'd just spin out. But like at a road course, I'm using that inner apron at 2 to help the damn thing stick the turn better at speed. Same thing I'm doing over there in 3. Something I haven't had to do before.
You just posted your best lap ever. Clear high.
And to me, that ability to go across the apron at 2 is something that is not real. I don't believe you can do that in real life and get away with it.
You're clear.
Especially, there's supposed to be that monster bump down there, which they didn't. I don't think they represented in 3 at this track, and they certainly don't have it here. Ah, look, I'm up to 9th, and look, somebody's blowing up in front of me. Just don't spin out in front of me. Don't spin out in front of me. Don't spin out in front of me. Go high. Go high. Go high. Good.
Clear outside.
There we go. Well, I guess I'm up to 9th. I don't think he was a lap down, or maybe I was 10th, and then as soon as he blew up, the game registered me as a spot higher. Anyway, whatever. I got my top 10. I just gotta hold it. 8 laps to go. Well, it's Pocono. It's a big track. A lot can happen, so I just gotta mind my P's and Q's, not get into anybody, not wreck myself. I also noticed that, you get a lot more aero sensitivity in NASCAR Heat 4. And sometimes when I'm behind a guy like that, especially probably because I got a dented front end, it makes the car aero tight. Okay. See, I couldn't tell you if I was tight or loose there. It just gets weird at the end, but at least I can get speed through it. Maybe not as much speed as I want or need, but more speed than I had earlier, so I'm happy for that at the moment. But you see that right rear still wearing. Now, one of the tricks I do, especially at a track like this, is I found if I can enter the turn harder, it's 165, and push it. See, I wore a little bit off the right front, which can help balance the super looseness. See, I'm perfectly imbalanced here with 92 wear, versus 89 wear on the diagonals. And I'm yeah, well, that means as the tires wear, my handling's probably going to get worse. But we only have a few laps to go, so it's just hang on. Now, it would be great if there was a pit stop 2 laps ago, 10 laps to go. That would probably give me enough, because Pocono is a wide track, and I know I'm faster than 20 or so trucks right off the bat. I'd probably get back to where I am before the end of the race, but I could do it with much more confidence, and with everybody bunched up, I might be able to gain a few spots before the end of the race. So here's the caution, but it's 6 laps to go, so I can't really pit. Not with the unreliability of this setup, and you look at that right rear is 4% behind the right front, and basically 4% off on the diagonals. I would add wedge normally, but I'm already at 51.7, and I don't have much success with super high wedge setups, especially on high speed. Well, more on high speed tracks, but this is more almost like half Daytona and half a road course, with an Indianapolis corner thrown in between the two. It's I just forgot it was gonna slide so much. Good thing is I aggravated the right front, which will probably give me a better balance for a few laps, and I was like, well, might as well take advantage of it.
You got room, you're clear.
And I'm in second. I have no illusions about being able to keep second unless I can not do that, and that's getting worse. So I'm just top 10. Just keep your nose clean, don't wreck anybody, don't wreck yourself. Just be smooth. It would be nice if I didn't have that nose damage, but what are you gonna do? I'm running right behind Moffat here. So hopefully that damage is minimized. It's in the turns, if anything, it'll hurt me more. Like there.
Still there inside.
Well, what are you gonna do? The good thing is, if you notice my right side tire temperatures, they're more even going through the turns than they were before. And my concern here is, because of the way it's been handling through it, I got to get to the inside. I got to clear him. I got to clear this guy, or else I'm just going to slide up into the wall. And I cleared him. I was able to have my line, but the tires are gone already. The setup is just, it's beyond its real usefulness. So now it's like everything I know, just to hang on for a few laps. Maybe I can hang on to 4th. Maybe I can get 3rd back. What do we got? Oh, last lap. So maybe I can get 3rd back, but I got to be very careful, because what happened before in turn 2 is probably gonna happen again. Look at me, I'm sliding all the way up.
Got one peeking inside.
And if you notice, the right front slid, and then I'm like, well, I got where did Burton come from? I'm like, I have no time. If I can't clear him, I'm probably gonna just have to ending up behind him because of this. Yeah, this is weird. Tight loose. Hadn't experienced that all day. It was just regular loose. So definitely a chassis, wholesale chassis change. if you noticed, I did make it tighter because the right front is wearing a little bit more than the left rear. But not enough. But instead of a top 10, I ended up with a top 5, which is, you know, more than I really could hope for. 99 speed rating, which is terrible. But, you know, you can still do well with that. So I qualified 13th. Means that somebody who qualifies better could probably have qualified in the top 10. But it also means I got a pretty fast truck. So, yeah, I stick to the bottom. When I get past all the trucks I knew I was faster than, you know, and a lot of it is, even if you have a bad setup, it's engine in a track like this and aerodynamics. You know, if you have a 100% engine, 100% aerodynamics, you're probably gonna get by half the field, because they have lesser engines and lesser aerodynamics than you do, being a 4 or a 3-star car. So, you know, you can get a decent finish at Pocono, if not a top 10. You can definitely get a top 15 if you just drive smart and you get some brakes and take tires all the time. You know, even on a default setup, you can run well at Pocono. It's just, what is it about Pocono? I don't know. They call it the tricky triangle. It's marketing. I've been to Pocono, walked the track. It's just a track, you know. Well, the way I look at it, except for between turns 2 and 3, I mean, you got a ton of time down the front stretch to figure out what you're going to do into 1, and you got a ton of time to think about what you're going to do into turn 2. So it's not like a short track or like a traditional 1.5 miles. It's just, you know, getting through turn 2 to me is key to the real speed at Pocono, and then, you know, getting through turn 3 as good as you can to get the big run down the front stretch where most of your speed is. You know, getting the most out of this helps your lap times overall, even if you have to slow down in 1. For some reason, carrying speed through 2 becomes the critical thing, and then off of, you know, lesser off of 1, and, you know, you got to get off 3 well too. It's kind of tough. It's like, you know, it's easy if you're good everywhere, but if you're good nowhere, if you're pretty good, you can still be good, if that makes any kind of sense whatsoever. You know, drafting is important. I don't have drafting partners enabled. I have draft on. But drafting is critical. It's one of the reasons why I'm shooting so well down the backstretch here when all the trucks are bunched up. And on the front stretch, critical. Help you make passes. I'm good at the super speedways, you know, with drafting and such. So, but I don't think that way when I'm racing Pocono. It's Pocono, and I race it, I guess, more like Indianapolis, definitely, in Michigan, because the straights are so long. You know, it's like you know, I'm sitting there trying to get past the guy into 2 because I know I got to be on the inside. And you know, you have enough time to think about it, and you have enough time to be able to back off if you have to. There's a lot of time to plan your moves and make your moves and figure it out. I mean, Pocono's one of my favorite tracks, and I remember way back in NASCAR too, I was horrible here, could not figure it out, and part of it was the setup I was using. And once I got a decent setup, and how I vetted that was, if in NASCAR Racing 2, they allowed you to sim the race, but watch it. So I watched the race with my car set up, and I finished in the top 5, and I was like, so I got a pretty good car, I just don't know what the hell I'm doing, how to drive the track. And that's, you know, it's like a road course. You know, it's unique, and you have to learn how to drive it. You know, getting a good run off of 3 is critical, but getting through 2 is critical. Getting through 3, getting through the turns is critical, but you got to be fast. If you run too low a gear, you're not going to be fast enough. You know, so you got it. Kind of, it's a weird thing. You just kind of get used to it, and NASCAR 4 plays into those things. So if you can figure out your gearing, that's a big part of it. If you can figure out your setups to get through all 3 turns really well, that's huge too. But going through the turns fast, like in a 3-star car, I remember, or truck, I did that, and then I'd get passed by 10 cars down the straight. That's not going to help you overall, is it? So you got to have a balance, and you got to have the best balance for whatever car or truck, you know, you're running. It's tough. You know, the top teams struggle at Pocono. The top drivers struggle at Pocono too. You know, guys have been driving there for 20 years, you know, twice a year, sometimes, you know, more with the lower series. Oh, I got an invite from KBM. Everybody wants me in the truck series, which is cool. This is a career race, won by full length. 3 races till playoffs. We're getting down to it here, so thank you all for coming along again for another ride. Oh, we got contracts. Oh, yeah, I want to run my own teams in truck and Xfinity. So, anyway, thank you all. Glad you all could come, and keep rolling. Please like and subscribe if you like it that much. If you don't, questions, anything, just leave them for me. Talk to you later.